Fred. I don't know what my old woman gave me for dinner today, but I didn't oughta eat it. That voice you heard was a typical London Cockney, and what he meant to say was, I don't know what my wife gave me for lunch today, but I really shouldn't have eaten it. Anyway, let's hear a bit more about him. I'm a funny kind of fella in a funny kind of way. I don't mean laughing funny, I mean peculiar, as they say. I'm what my friends and relatives call rather weak inside. And although I know I've got to eat some food I can't abide, I had some jam on kippers once and had to go to bed. And when the doctor, he came round, what do you think he said? Well, you didn't oughta eat it. That's what the doctor said. I didn't oughta eat it, I answered from my bed. He said, you do that again, young man, I'm sure you will regret it. Eating jam on kippers. You didn't oughta eat it. Sounds horrible anyway. Now, I'm very fond of animals, and I once went to the zoo. I like to study animals when I've nothing much to do. Well, I had some sandwiches with me made of pepper, sauce and chutney. My auntie makes them up for me. She's got a pub at Putney. Well, it's the only thing that rhymes with chutney, you see. Well, I thought as I was tasting one, it seemed a little odd, when an elephant stretched out his trunk and scoffed the blooming lot. Well, he didn't oughta eat it. And you ought to have seen him bunk. No, he didn't oughta eat it. There were sparks all round his trunk. The keeper said, give me a bite, I've got to go and get it. I said, well, taste it first, then you'll find out why he didn't oughta eat it. Here, I once went to the Derby to see the horses run. And there I saw a fairground and I thought I'd have some fun. I saw some freaks and waxworks and acrobats on boards, and a little bloke in coloured tights, he said he swallowed swords. Well, I had a friend of mine with me, a bloke they called Jim Mullet. He said, I'll do that. Grabbed the sword and shoved it down his gullet. Well, he didn't oughta eat it. And the bloke didn't half get mad. He said he didn't oughta eat it. That's the only sword I had. I said, well, if you want it back, I'm afraid you'll never get it, 'cause it never had no handle on. He didn't oughta eat it. I wonder how many of you repeated that last line with me. Of course, there are various ways of speaking Cockney. For instance, I knew a chap once who had a brother in the Lifeguards, but he used to talk about him as my brother in the Lifeguards, and nearly choked himself swallowing the word. Something like this. You could talk about your Air Force in their blue and red machines. You could talk about the Navy and the Army and Marines, and I know they're worth the glory that's showered on them too, and I know they do it properly when they've got a job to do, but I've got a special hero, eh? And I'll bet you can't guess who. Well, I'll tell you, it's my brother in the Lifeguards, and he don't half look a dandy when he's sitting on his horse. You see, the Lifeguards, they ain't mechanised, so he's got an horse, of course. And underneath the horse's saddle, there's a kind of sheepskin rug. And he sits up there all stiff and straight, and he don't half look smug. Yeah, and his helmet, it comes so low in front, you can hardly see his mug. He looks a screamy to my brother in the Lifeguards. His Christian name is Sydney, and he ain't half a Sid. He run away to join the Lifeguards. Yeah, no, straight he did. And he's really very comical. He's full of fun and chaff. If there's any funny pranks about, you can bet Sid's head on off. Yeah, when he comes on leave on Sundays, could he don't off make us laugh? He do that straight, he do, my brother in the Lifeguards. He rides a mare called Edna. Hey, now, there's a funny name. And he's all jet black all over, and she's sweet and nice and tame, and he curry combs and brushes her, well, more times than enough. Feeds her sweets and carrots and all that kind of stuff. I think he'd take it to the pictures if the seats was big enough. He would, though, straight he would, my brother in the lifeguards. He said he didn't half feel jumpy the first time on Century Go. It was in that street they call Whitehall, in them horse hutches. Well, you know. And I expect you do feel jumpy when you're on guard, I suppose. And Edna, she wasn't used to him. She kept hopping on her toes. And then she jerked the reins so much, his helmet cut his nose. He didn't like that much, my brother in the lifeguards. When he come off guard, the corporal says, "You're bleeding at the nose." And said, she wouldn't let Edna down. He said, "Well, I banged it, I suppose." Said the corporal, "Sidney Warner, now you're really very slack. As a remedy for that complaint, a good old-fashioned knack." Well, how could he take his breastplate off and shove it down his back? He's no contortionist, my brother. Oh, well, I think I've told you quite enough about my brother Sid. I could go on talking all night long. You'd get fed up if I didn't. Yeah, but if ever you go down Whitehall and you've got some time to spare, and you see two blokes on horseback, on the right from Trafalgar Square, and one of them's got a shiny nose, and he's on a jet black mare, well, that's Edna, and my brother in the lifeguards. And now I'm going to tell you a story of a railway wheel tapper who won a lot of money in a football sweep. He went up in the world in consequence and got rather mixed up in his speech. If anybody asked him what he used to do before he won so much money, his reply was, I was walking up and down the Rawlway Laines. Now, I haven't always been dressed up as posh as I am now. As some might say, I'm dressed up to the nines. 6 months ago, I worked quite hard at tapping railway wheels and walking up and down the railway lanes. Now, the tapping of the railway wheel is quite a touchy job, and for arrest and change one often pains. But it's not the tapping railway wheels that makes one really tired. It's the walking up and down the railway lanes. Well, from a passing train one day, a football coupon fell, a coloured sheet with funny square designs. So I thought I'd win some cash and fling my hammer to the winds and stop walking up and down the railway lanes. Well, I got so interested in the 1, 2, X, and the filling in the 7s and 8s and 9s, that I nearly got the Scotch Express between my shoulder blades, which would have spread me up and down the railway lanes. Now, my better half, she'd never hold with gambling like this year. If I overspend a florin, she just wanes. So I says to her, "You silly girl, you go and tap some wills and try walking up and down the railway lanes." Yeah, but when I learnt one Saturday I'd really won a packet, I does the only thing, I just resigns. And I sees the station master and says, "You can keep your hammer." And the same applies to all the railway lanes. Well, the station was so very small, it left him all alone. So I takes him out and we wines and dines and wanes. And it appears he felt so ill next day, he tried to tap some wills while they was running up and down the railway lanes. So now the station's closed and I just live a life of ease. But if ever for a change my soul it pains, I climb up in the signal box and listen to the whistles while the trains run up and down the railway lanes. And now I'd like to tell you something about human nature, because human nature really is a very funny thing. We're brought into this world, we live, we laugh, we play, we sing. But what amuses all of us, though not in an unkind way, It's another bloke's discomfiture, that's a fact you can't gainsay. You see a chap fall off a bus and nearly break his arm, and although you feel real sorry, and you don't mean him no harm, still you can't help laughing. No, it makes you laugh. And you go and help him, of course you do, not harm. And you say, I'm sorry, governor, and he says, that's all right, Jack. It's my own blue pencil fault, you see, I must be getting slack. And another car comes up behind and hits him in the back. Well, you can't help laughing, or look where they're going, really, didn't they? Now, you wouldn't think to look at me, I was a fireman once. I wasn't very good at school, in fact, I was a dunce. But I liked to be a fireman with me helmet and me hatchet, and the pole we had to slide down, I was always first to snatch it. We had some fire drill practice once, and a bloke called Jimmy Street. He had to climb 2 stories up and jump into a sheet. Well, you can't help laughing. No, it makes you laugh. Jim shouts, ready? We says, yes, we are, not half. So he climbs out on the windowsill and squats down on his feet and gives a great big jump and floats down gently to the street, see? But owing to a slight mistake, they hadn't got the sheet. Still, you can't help laughing. Bottom step's always the lowest. Listen. Now, a friend of mine has been and bought a second-hand old car. A motor car, I'm talking of, you know, a la-di-da. Well, he's always tinkering with it with his head inside the bonnet. He's always polishing the wings and sticking badges on it. I went round to see him yesterday and talk about a wreck. The bonnet had slipped off the catch and caught him on the neck. Well, you can't help laughing. No, it makes you laugh. He said, I don't think that's funny, stop your chaff. Well, I said, I'm sorry, Alfred, I expect your neck feels sore. Why don't you rest inside the car? You can't stand any more. But as he settled down, I shut his fingers in the door. Still, you can't help laughing. It makes you laugh. And now, here is yet another type of Cockney slang with a story about sea lions and seals. Only some Cockneys say sea lions and sills. I must tell you of Alec, my fishmonger friend, how he come to train sea lions and sills, because he first started life in a very small way, selling haddocks, kippers and ills. He sells skate and plaice and codlings and all, a variety of fishes he sells. And as there was plenty of all kinds of fishes, there was plenty of all kinds of smells. And so it fell out, it happened one day, he got tired, you know how one feels, and he shut up his shop and he went to a circus where one act was sea lions and sills. I must say at this point he'd been given a seat, because someone had complied with his wishes, and he sat by the ring in the very same suit in the which he'd been selling his fishes. When a nice girl said, "Programs," he says, "Not for me, I've seen all the acts on the bills." And he sat through the show munching apples and sweets when in comes the sea lions and sills. At the start they was doing their stuff as they should, and the audience whistles and shouts, while one played the cornet, 2 stood cheek by jowl and was balancing balls on their snouts. Then all of a sudden the trainer realised they had not got their minds on their act, and he saw in a trice that to finish the show he'd have to use plenty of tact. But the scent of the suit to my fishmonger friend was too much for the sea lions and sills, and as they had not had no food for some hours, you can tell how the hungry still fills. Then the sea lions and sills started making for Alec, flapping their fins with loud squills, and before he had time to get off his seat, he was smothered with sea lions and sills. But he made his escape when he ran for his life with the sea lions and sills at his heels. He got home in the dark, his wife said, "Who's your friends?" Said, "They're not friends, they're lions and sills." But Alec felt sorry and opened his shop to get food for the sea lions and sills, and they liked him so much that he taught them new tricks while they ate up his fishes and ills. So that is the tale of my story of Alec, though one vital point it reveals, and that is you can't keep a fish shop as well if you want to keep sea lions and sills. I expect a lot of you remember when I used to talk about funny occupations. And the first one was a man who bungs up ratholes, a rathole bunger upper, or a bunger upper ratholes. Anyway, the song went like this. Listen. Now, I really ought to tell you about the job I've got. To look at me, you wouldn't think it true. Now, I don't look like a fella who has to be hard-hearted. Well, I'm not, but this is what I have to do. I'm a bloke what bungs up ratholes. I am really. I'm a rathole bunger upper too and all. And when I speak at ratholes, I don't mean babies' rattles. I mean holes what's bored by rats right through the wall. Now I've had and heard some narrow squeaks in my time. Though I don't look brave or very fond of strife, still all the time there's ratholes, there'll be bungers up a ratholes. So it looks as though I've got a job for life. Well, that was the very first one ever. And now I'd like to sing you a couple more, and this time they're a little bit up to date. Now, a man I know a very funny kind of job enjoys. It's where they're making shuttlecocks and other feather toys. His job's to bend the feathers so they stick a certain way, and this is what he told me when I saw him yesterday. He's a Fumper and a Flattener of Fevvers. He's a feather thumper, that's the job he's at. 'Cause when a feather furls up and when a feather curls up, the feather thumper thumps the feather flat. Now the feather thumper feeds the feather fixer, and the fixer fixes feathers that he's dumped. But the curled ones he refuses, so the feathers that he uses are the feathers that the feather thumpers thumped. Got it? Now, there's a plaster moulder's yard about a mile from here. Well, my old Uncle Teddy has a job that may sound queer. It really is quite different to what other people do, but it really is a clever job. I am not a-kidding of you. 'Cause he's a caster up of alabaster plaster. He's an alabaster plaster caster, see? And he doesn't mix with water common powder into mortar, for an alabaster plasterer is he. Now, if he were merely mixing for cementing, he would stir it to the mixer as of old. But to prove his this master casts his plaster alabaster in an alabaster plaster caster's mold.